All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I know folks are getting situated, so I'll give it a second as folks are getting connected to audio, getting their videos all set up and everything. It's good to see everyone. All right. Give it a second. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started as folks are still getting connected, but welcome to our event tonight, Student Perspectives, What I Wish I Knew My First Year. Thank you so much for joining us in this third event of our summer program series for incoming students. So we have a couple of current students here with us tonight to share some tips and tricks and advice around what they wish they knew their first year. And so we hope this session will be really interactive where you all will have a chance to engage with the panelists, ask questions, and make sure that you get all your questions answered tonight. Let's see, in the Zoom space, I know that you have the option to keep your video off and your audio off, but if you feel inclined to do so, we invite you to turn on your cameras because I know it's nice to see and meet some new people, but also recognize that it's okay to have your camera off as well, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And for our session tonight, we'll provide an opportunity for the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll go right ahead into the session. And there will be an interactive polling feature. And so there will be a point where you might want to use your mobile device if you have internet capabilities on that, or if you are already connected to a laptop or computer, you can just go ahead and use another tab for that. So that's something to prepare for. Just to introduce myself, my name is Julie Vann. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Director of First Year Programs and Student Engagement here within Khoury. And I'm so excited because my job is to engage with first year students to help you all find your sense of community, to continue to make sure that you all feel welcome and to create new and fun and engaging programs for you all to feel connected to Khoury. And so I hope this is not the first time we interact and that we can continue this relationship after this call and that you all continue to provide feedback for me on things that you would like to see during your first year and beyond. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you all, so I appreciate your patience. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves, and we can just go ahead and go down the list if that works for the group.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Brendan. I am a third-year computer science major with an AI concentration. I'm currently the vice president of Multi, and I've done a bunch of other things at Northeastern, including intercollegiate debate, which was a really interesting experience, a bunch of other computer science and data science related organizations, and a few random things like Cheese Club. So if you have questions about fun clubs, I might be your person for those answers. I'm currently on a data science co-op at Liberty Mutual. And yeah, that's it.
Hey everyone, I'm Harsh. I'm a fourth year computer science and business major. I have a concentration in the field of entrepreneurship. My on-campus activities include being president of First Byte and being a Fundies 1 TA. So if you have any questions about Fundies 1 as you go into your first semester, feel free to reach out and ask me those questions. And I've done 3 co-ops, which are kind of listed on the slide.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sumana. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm also a rising third year CS student with a concentration in AI like Brendan. I have a minor in math, and I'm also, like Brendan again, involved with Multi. I was on the Multi e-board for a bit. I'm also involved in UTSAV, which is the South Asian organization on campus. I dance through them too. And I'm on my first co-op right now as a software developer co-op at Power Advocate.
Excellent. Thank you to our panelists. All right, so for this next part, we want to make sure that we're answering the questions that you have and focusing on the topics that you want to hear most about. The goal is that hopefully we'll be able to get through all these topics, but we want to be able to prioritize the ones that, again, you feel like you really want to hear more about. So a couple different topics that we have planned for tonight include office hours and TA resources. So office hours are a time for you to connect with your instructors for your course. It's a time for you to ask questions, to get additional support in the courses that you're taking. And this is something that we really want to make sure that you know about and utilize. And so those are office hours. And then TA stands for teaching assistant, which are undergraduate students who are supporting the instructors and you in the course. They lead your lab sections. And so, for example, you heard Harsh speak about being a TA for the course. And so you can hear more about that perspective and how to really build the relationships both with your instructors and your teaching assistants. Another topic will be living in the residence halls. What is it like to live in the residence halls? If you have questions about the LLCs, which stands for Living Learning Communities, we have 2 Khoury specific ones. And so I know we have panelists who have lived in the LLCs, so to speak to that experience. And just overall, what is it like? Because I know that for many of you all, this might be the first time that you are living away from home and really having this type of experience. Meeting new people, just generally, how do you do that? And especially, I think that's a relevant question, especially after a year and a half of of pandemic procedures and life starting to really open back up again. That might be a concern about how do I really engage and get connected to campus, especially during these times. Fundies, so which is lovely short for Fundamentals of Computer Science 1, which is a class that all computer science majors take. But for this topic, if you choose to rank this in your rankings, it doesn't have to be limited to just Fundies, but also I know that you all take discrete structures. And so generally just courses that you are taking that first semester. Get involved on campus, as you can tell. Our panels are really involved on campus, both within Khoury specific clubs and non-Khoury specific clubs, and just different ways of building their sense of community. So that is a topic. Preparing for co-op. I know that it might not be something that you have to focus on immediately during your first year, and we want you to be able to have that strong foundation first. But we also recognize that students just have general questions about co-op and that co-op experience. And I know that the co-op structure is something that's really unique and interesting about the Northeastern experience. Living in Boston, what is that like? What are some of the great spots? What are fun things to do? Hear it straight from our panelists tonight. Electives and general education requirements. How do I really make the most of my academic experience outside of data sciences or computer science, and using these electives and general education requirements to really build my experience? And then also campus resources. So for example, we have affinity spaces like culture centers on campus. We have different ways to get involved, like the Center of Student Involvement. We have, university health services to provide services for students. And so we have a wide range of different campus resources. I know that there's a lot to unpack there. And so we want to make sure that we answer any questions that you might have about campus resources. So that is a general overview of some of the topics. But again, we will certainly have time for you to ask any questions that might not fall under any of these categories. And so with that said, I'm going to pop over to this next slide. And what I want you all to do is go to the website, so www.menti.com, and it will ask you for a code, which will be 21633491. And what it will ask you to do is rank your order of the topics that you're most interested in hearing about. So I want you all to take a couple minutes to go ahead and do this and start ranking your orders. And then based on that, we will start our conversation with our panelists. And hopefully, again, we will get through all the topics, but we want to make sure we highlight the ones that you want to hear most about first. And if you have any issues at all with it, let me know, put your comments in the chat. But I will go ahead and put the website in the chat as well, so everyone has access to that. And then the code is to all right, so we have some responses coming in already. Oh, I love seeing this live. This is exciting. All right, excellent. Continue to submit your answers. I know there's a lot to rank, there's a lot to think about, so certainly take your time. All right, things are slowing down a bit, but continue to submit your answers. Oh, I feel like I'm on a game show. Things are constantly moving. Who's going to edge out which topic? Okay, excellent. So continue, if you haven't already submitted your answers, please continue to do so. But we'll go ahead and get started based on the top couple of topics so far. So the first one will be Fundies. It sounds like a lot of people have a lot of questions about Fundies and that experience. So we'll go ahead and start there. So what I'm going to do is I will stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to keep an eye out on the poll and use that to form our discussion. But essentially how the structure will be is we'll select the topic. So the first topic is Fundies. Our panelists will share a bit more about their experiences with that topic, provide any advice or tips that they have, things that they wish they knew their first year as it relates to this topic. And then we will open it up to you all where you can ask questions about this specific topic. So anything that the panelists share that you want to hear more about or general questions that you have about Fundies. And you can do that a couple different ways. So you can either unmute yourself and ask your questions directly. You can put it directly into the chat. Or I know that sometimes people have, they just don't want to ask questions. They might have concerns about that and their names associated with it. So if you want to private message me to share your question anonymously, I can share it to the group so that you don't have to fear, asking questions or anything like that. All right, so I did a lot of talking. I will stop talking and I will hand it over to our panelists to discuss our first topic, Fundies. So without further ado, our panelists.
I can start us off with a very general overview and then we can stop for questions at any point. A few important things with Fundies. It's kind of the great equalizer. My professor that I had for Fundies 1, Nate Drabinski, is awesome. And he said that students who have programming experience versus those who don't have an average of the same grades in Fundies. So if you're somebody who doesn't have much experience coding or has no experience coding, please don't worry about it because the kids who think they know what they're doing are often the ones who end up with worse grades in the class. So really it's a bit of an equalizer as far as that stuff goes. And of course it is in Racket, so it's not a language that people are going to be familiar with, which is good. So yeah, that's going to be nice. You will all be on the same level. Make sure that you go to office hours, which especially TA office hours, you kind of just show up to a classroom on campus and there are a bunch of older students who've taken Fundies in the last couple of years and they will help you with anything. You just raise your hand, ask a question or write your name on the board. They have like a queue lined up. So that's super helpful, especially going with friends. You just kind of sit there and work on your stuff, even if you don't have questions. It's a good environment to be in. What other things are useful to mention about Fundies? Yeah, definitely don't worry about it, but know that it is going to be a big time commitment. So prepare to study, but it's not like impossibly hard. As long as you go to office hours enough, you will all be absolutely fine. Yeah, I don't know. Sumina and Harsh, do you guys have anything to say? I'm sort of rambling about Fundies, but hopefully that's a good starting point.
I can add a little to that. So I think Fundies is like the first step where like everyone is just genuinely scared because they see like a new language kind of being taught to them. So like if you're a non-CS person, obviously it's a new language, but even if you're a CS background a student, so you still see like a new language. So first thing I would definitely suggest is like don't be scared of that because it's like everyone is going through the same specific thing. So like, don't be scared of it. Like if you're scared, then you're more likely to make mistakes. Be confident. with the content. At the same time, I would say a lot of us have this tendency to kind of like not listen to the specific instructions that are passed on. Because I did the same thing where like everyone in the Fundies course will tell you follow the design recipe, and it'll be there multiple number of times. And despite that, me as a student, I have disobeyed that, and me as a TA have seen other students disobey that. So what I would definitely suggest is like, it's not very difficult. All you need to do is kind of follow the design recipe, because once you kind of do that, things become easier in that. In terms of like homeworks and stuff, I feel like you should start early, because you can get a lot of help uh, at an early stage and finish it off really quickly. And then I think, yeah, that's pretty much it on Fundies, at least, unless someone has specific questions about Fundies as well.
I guess also on that, something that helps for like all Khoury classes, all classes in general, but especially with Fundies and another first year CS class, Discrete, having like a group of like a study group basically of people that you can bounce ideas off of, ask questions, like a reliable group of people that you can work on things with, even if obviously like don't copy other people's code, but if you're bouncing ideas off each other, you can find new ways to do things, which will help so much in coding overall. Especially if Fundies is like super new and you're not used to that thought pattern. Because I mean, like for me, and also a lot of people who didn't come into college with a lot of coding experience, it's just very, very new. And some people who've been here or like been doing this type of thing for longer may have some ideas that like they're great. They're like just like a different line of thinking, I guess. So talking to people and figuring that out is very helpful.
I think also another thing I just want to point out, because it's like very commonly spoken about. Um, at some point of time in either Fundies 1 or Fundies 2, you'll hear this term that the course is just to remove people out of computer science, which is like absolutely not true, because essentially the course is less about teaching you coding. It's more about teaching you like how to write proper code and how to design your code properly. And that's where your fundamentals kind of come in, because if you don't really know the fundamentals well, what will happen is like you will have a tough time with Fundies too, and then that will kind of result in a difficult time in like OD and other stuff. So you always want to ensure that you treat like you obviously ensure that you know each and every concept as you go through the course. And just remember that it's not a course to like remove people out of computer science. um, it's just a way to kind of teach you how to design stuff properly. In terms of language, we kind of use Dr. Racket, which supports BSL and ISL. So you can have a look at that. You can also go on the Fundies One website. So if you just search Fundies One on Google, you should be able to see the website. And if you want to get head start on like the course content and stuff, that's I guess you would be in a better shape then.
Thank you to our panelists for that. And so now we'll open it up to some questions that you may have about Fundies. And so one question, and so again, feel free to put in the chat, direct message me your questions, whatever you would like to do. One question I got was, is Fundies a lot harder than Discrete?
They're really different. It's kind of like, I'm trying to find an analogy for it. It's obviously not as different as like a math class and a history class, but they're not very comparable. One is more, Discrete is very like math and logic based. You do things from like proofs to like straight math to computer science C math, whereas Fundies is mostly just programming. A lot of people have different views on this. I personally thought Fundies was harder than Discrete. So many people vary. It's just one of those things that it can really go either way.
Yeah, they're very different classes, so it's a bit difficult to compare, but Sumina described them pretty well. if also I came out of high school not really liking math, like I didn't do well in calculus or anything. If you're worried about that sort of thing, discrete is a whole different ballgame of math. Like it is not the same type of math that you've experienced before. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But note that it will be different from what you've seen unless you've taken, I mean, maybe it relates a little bit to like probability stuff if you've taken a stats course, but aside from that, it will be pretty much all new to all of you and it won't be too hard. It's nothing crazy, but there is a lot of content in both courses. And then Fundies is like sit down and program for a bunch of hours sort of thing.
Yeah, also just to add, so like I came from like an IB background where I did study computer science. So I found discrete to be like very aligning with like IB content, because like there was some concepts that I had learned in IB regarding discrete. So like I had a much easier time in discrete compared to Fundies, where like it's like a new language we kind of didn't explore into. So I also see a question. So yes, you do have to take Fundies and discrete both in the first year, unless you're like some form of a combined major where there might be an opportunity for you to skip discrete but not Fundies. And I believe, or at least when I took it, you could give a test to drop out of discrete and take some other course, but I'm still not sure if it's like applicable on the current incoming students or not. So I think your professor will be like better able to answer that, but I would definitely ask that question on the first day.
Excellent, thank you. And then I got a couple questions around the accelerated version of Fundies versus the regular version. And essentially they're the same, only that the accelerated version moves at a quicker pace. And then as a result of that, you're covering a couple of different additional topics as well. And so I pasted something that was directly from the Fundies the accelerated versions website so that you can get a sense of what specifics, like in terms of what topics you are covering in addition to that. I don't know if any of our panelists have had experience with the accelerated version, can speak to that.
I can talk about it from my friends having had experiences in accelerated. So I think I wish the messaging were a little bit clearer for accelerated. I haven't read the summary that Julie just pasted, but it seems like covering additional topics and things. And so any of you that may have taken computer science courses before, like AP, CSA or something like that, might be thinking, oh, I should try accelerated. Well, it's worth the exact same, and it takes a huge, like much more significant amount of time. And I'm pretty sure there's a big project that like stretches over the range of the whole semester. So what you're doing is taking on a lot of extra work, and that is something that you have to know you're getting into when you take an accelerated course, especially when there's not extra credit associated with it. I have some friends that have had a great experience with it. One of my best friends absolutely loved the class, especially the professor, and had a great experience. But I also know a lot of people who dropped out of the accelerated section. So if you drop out of the accelerated one, you sort of go straight into normal Fundies, which is totally fine and more than difficult enough for almost everybody. So it shouldn't be a concern for you guys. But I would say for the overwhelming majority of you, I'd caution against accelerated, but if you do want to give it a shot, it is fairly easy to drop out of it, but there might be a limited number of spots. So I don't know. It sort of depends on what sort of programming experience you have. Like the student that I know that had a good time took like 2 or 3 programming classes in high school, and students that had a bad time were ones who had like just APCS or had done like some personal programming on the side or that sort of thing. Yeah, that's sort of like a long-winded answer, but that's what I have to say about accelerated. So be wary of it. Take at your own risk, I guess.
That's great. Thank you, Brendan. And if you have any more like additional questions or you want to see if it's a good fit for you, you can always speak to your academic advisor. They have drop-ins throughout the summer where you can come and speak to an academic advisor. And also on the flip side of that, something that's new for this upcoming year is for students who have no prior CS experience at all. We have a couple of different lab sections for students who have no prior experience. And so that's a really nice way to be in a lab with other students who don't have prior experience, because I know that sometimes that can cause nerves, anxieties, especially if this is your first time really diving into programming. And so that's also another option for you as well. If you want to be around other peers who don't have experience, you can really think of that as like a learning community. And so that's also something that you can connect with your academic advisor about, or if you want to connect with me, I can connect you with someone to speak more about that too. And so I have a couple questions around note taking. It sounds like people are responding to that in the chat, so we'll go ahead and move forward, but continue sending your questions. But due to time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is living in the residence halls. So I'm going to give our panelists a second to think about it, some of what they wish they knew their first year about living in the residence halls, and continue to put your questions in the chat, and I will make sure to ask them.
One thing that I was going to note, just thinking ahead to this presentation about residence halls, is that I lived in the Khoury LLC and it was a great experience. But I know that a few days ago, or maybe even yesterday, you were just given your housing assignments. So if you're not in the Khoury LLC, don't worry, it's not going to like destroy your life. You'll be totally fine. But it is, for those of you who did decide to do the Khoury LLC, it is a good experience, I think, for most of us. But I would recommend, I don't know which dorm is going to house it this year, but make friends there and hang out there, because everybody will be doing the same homework assignments. And like the whole basement's full of students working on the same stuff, and people just hang out and work on things, and it's a good place to be. So if you can make friends in that res hall, I would.
Yeah, I think generally you'll relate more to like the CS LLC, but like you can definitely go in like other LLC as well, because like it offers you like a different kind of an experience, because like I know Ivy is like a mixed LLC sort of a thing, where you kind of get to interact not just with like freshmen but like more senior students as well, who can kind of help you as well. So I think like it's kind of a mix of both. Like, you know, on the plus side, you do get like help for like all of your freshman courses and stuff, and you get to interact with more freshmen. But then at the same time, like, you know, you get more like diverse perspectives in like IB or like some other form of LLC.
Yeah, similar to what Harsh and Brendan just said, being in the CS LLC, I wasn't, but having friends that were, I guess like if we had a big Fundies assignment due like Thursday night, there'd be so many other people also working on it. And it was kind of like a community in that aspect where you'd always like have options for help and have people who relate to what you're doing. But I wasn't in the CS LLC, and honestly, like I really liked it because I could leave like the CS bubble separate. So like a lot of my, or the people on my floor were like engineering or bio people. So I'd see their big engineering projects, or my roommates would talk about their bio things. And I liked having like a separate like world that I went back to after my classes. So it really like depends. There are pros and cons to both.
Definitely. I can remember one specific instance where I think I signed you into our basement, and then they took Gigi in. So like the four of us studied together a bunch. And it was for when we took math of data models. We were in the basement. Everybody was working the same assignment because I think it was due at midnight. We were supposed to build a neural network or something, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with that term, but you might have heard the words before. It was difficult and we didn't really know what we were doing, but there were a few kids that really knew, so they would like look over your shoulder and help you out, and it was really great. So yeah, you're not at a disadvantage to be outside of the LLC, but it is a good place to have friends in and spend time in. Sort of like being in office hours, like just being around a bunch of students working on the same assignment is a good time. Kind of share the suffering a little bit.
Thank you to our panelists for kicking that off. Any questions from the group about living in the residence halls, what that experience is like? All right, so we can revisit this topic, of course. But okay, well, I do have one question. Did any of you all have bad experiences, and how did you recover from that?
Is this bad experience with Fundies or bad experience with an LLC?
I think just bad experience living in the residence halls.
Yeah, so I haven't had like a really bad experience, but like sometimes I've heard like you typically don't end up liking your roommate and stuff. So I feel like having a conversation with your roommate about like what are the things you expect out of them and what are the things, you know, you both mutually agree on. I think that's like important because like then, you know, it's obviously better like, you know, you both know each other's boundaries and like things to do and things not to do. And in addition to that, I believe if you know, if you reach to a point where like you specifically like don't want to live with a specific roommate, or if you don't want to live in a specific LLC, uh, the housing department does offer you the opportunity to kind of change your housing based on like every semester. So like let's say after fall semester you decide that okay, I don't want to stay in the Khoury LLC and I want to kind of move to like a mix LLC like IV essentially, you can actually fill an application to kind of move into a different housing as well.
Thank you, Harsh, for sharing. Let's see. Those are all the questions as of right now for residence halls. So we can move on to the next topic. And again, of course, feel free to submit your answers or questions as they come in. But we'll move on to electives and general education requirements and new paths. So what did you wish you knew? Did you wish you know about those topics? And like you speak about like academic exploration, taking classes outside of core and computer science and data science, and how can students really utilize general education and elective like credit requirements to the best of their abilities?
One thing about new paths, which are like Northeastern's name for gen eds or like general education electives, um, if you're considering a minor and you have some gen eds or new path requirements left, try to find like a class that satisfies both. Or also like if you have a lot of new path requirements left, you can find classes that overlap a lot of the requirements. I know for me, I think I had like an ethical reasoning requirement left, and I didn't know that one of the CS classes that were required actually had an option to cover that. So I ended up taking two separate classes, even though I could have just taken the one to cover the requirement. So that's something to keep in mind.
Similarly, I started as a combined major. I was CS business, and then I had a great econ professor for my econ class that I took first semester. So I decided to switch to CS econ. And then I looked at the upper level requirements for CS econ and said, never mind. And so then I switched to pure CS. So sometimes you go on a bit of a rocky road with switching in and out of concentrations, and that will have some impact on your courses. One thing that I would recommend is if you there are a bunch of plans of study on Northeastern's website somewhere. If you just search like BSCS Northeastern on Google, it comes up, and then you can kind of compare different ones and look for the courses that are required in common between the things that you're interested in. So you can kind of take those first, maybe decide later, and then not waste any classes. But you also should have space in your schedule to waste one or two and satisfy other requirements. Like I think econ satisfied a requirement for me, and I had a good time with it. So yeah, definitely look at those plans if you can, and try to that might help you if you have specific interests or questions. I'm sure the three of us would be happy to answer questions over email too. If you have like specific, I am interested in this concentration or this combined major, we'll help you figure it out. I helped my friend from my high school last night fix his schedule because his advisor gave him an 8 a.m. and I said, no, you're not doing an 8 a.m. class. So I helped him change it in like the schedule thing. So yeah, if you guys want specific help, please let us know.
Yeah, also, oh, sorry. I just have like a quick thing. If you know like any upperclassmen or like even like the Facebook, I don't know, like boards or Reddit, you can ask like about electives and or also like search through the Northeastern Reddit about like class names or like the class code, and maybe people have like comments about it. And like some classes, if even if they don't have such like an interesting name, people have like raved about them. They're like, this is a great class. So asking upperclassmen or finding out where upperclassmen, like if anyone who's taken classes have talked about it, is a great place to look.
Yeah, and I think for like just like talking about general electives and like NU path requirements, so this is my personal suggestion. Like I typically suggest not to take as many electives in the start because when I started off as a computer science and a game design major, and I kind of did my major stuff along with a good amount of electives. And then what ended up happening was like I think by my second year, I decided I don't want to pursue game design. I wanted to move into like the CS and business kind of a combined major. And once I did that, a lot of my game development courses kind of converted into electives, but then they didn't fill the NU path requirements. So like I kind of had to take extra courses, which basically like delayed my graduation date. So this is my personal preference that you should take like less electives in the start and more of those general major related courses. And like once you're kind of confident that okay, I don't want to change my major at all, I guess that's the time when you can start planning out all your other electives.
Thank you, everyone. So I have a whole slew of questions running the gamut of the different topics that we covered. So we're just going to backlog through them a little bit. But I have a specific question for Harsh. Can you speak as to why you didn't go with the game design route? We have a student who is unsure if they should keep their game design combined major.
Okay, so this is my kind of a problem. When I initially came into game design, I came up with this expectation of like just video game design, and that's not what the game design was, because they kind of focus on like board games, they focus on card games, so it's just any general game design that you kind of potentially work towards. So initially once I was doing that, I was kind of enjoying the classes, but like later on I kind of realized I don't really like discussing just general stuff, and like I would rather prefer to play the video games rather than make it, because like when you kind of design some smaller video games, the amount of testing you have to do to ensure it's working right, it's a little annoying, at least for me. So that's why I kind of decided to like move into a field where I'm not just like kind of working in um, coding related area, or like just thinking kind of an area, but more of like, you know, like general knowledge and like how to sell something that I've potentially made from my CS side of the major. So I felt like the switch from game design to like CS business major kind of worked good for me. But like if you are a student who's kind of intended towards like just general game design, I think it's a pretty good program to kind of like get started on.
Great, thank you. And like Brendan said as well, he has a lot of friends who had a good experiences. So I think a whole part of just like the first semester and the first couple of semesters, just exploring and taking these classes and intro classes and just getting a sense for the content itself, and just reflecting on like whether or not it really aligns with your interests and what your goals are post graduation. And so, you know, it will definitely run the gamut in terms of perspective. I know that this is answered in the chat, but I think this is a good question to ask to the large group in terms of, do you sleep a lot? Has CS work impacted your sleep schedule? And I think it gets at the whole question around balance, like what are you studying all the time? Will I actually have time for a social life? Like what is a social life? So can you all speak to kind of that experience?
I can speak to the what is a social life part. No, just kidding. Okay, so here's kind of the rough deal. For most students, the CS curriculum, especially in your first year, will take a huge amount of your time. It sort of decreases as you get on in years too, which has been kind of odd, because after my first semester, I was like, oh my God, it can't get like, I don't have any more hours in the day. This isn't going to be, and this is because I wasn't very efficient with my time. So this might not be your experience, but I was really worried about it. I asked my older cousin who was in Northeastern CS program at the time, and she said it does not get harder than Fundies. And I did not believe her, but I am in my third year and it hasn't gotten harder yet. It kind of stays the same and you get better. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. More explicitly about sleep. If you are studying with friends, that can be a blessing and a curse, because you get through assignments more quickly, but you're also hanging out, so you tend to waste time. But I would not recommend just like chipping away at a problem in your dorm room alone for hours and hours. One time I did that on a Friday, and then I went down into the basement where all of my friends were hanging out, basement of the dorm, and asked them about the problem that I was working on. And they told me immediately, like the small thing that I was making a mistake on and wasted like 3 hours instead of hanging out with people. So I think working with other people will help with time management. Being in office hours will help. If you just try to sit alone and work your way through things like you might have done in high school, it's not going to go too well time management wise. But it is very possible to get all of your work done, get good grades, get enough sleep, and have whatever flavor of fun you are interested in having. But you do need to manage things.
Also, there isn't much flexibility, I think, for like first year schedules, but as you go up in the years, you'll have more flexibility in choosing times. So my freshman year, first semester schedule was like spaced out oddly. So I had classes in the morning and ended at 5:40 with only like 1 hour or 2 hour breaks in between, which isn't a lot of time to like sit down and like get a bunch of work done because it takes like time to walk to classes, takes time to eat. Before that, you're like, okay, now I have like 35 minutes. I can't just like program a whole thing right now. So my schedule wasn't very beneficial to my sleep schedule freshman year, but it definitely got better as I could choose my times or like class times better and work around that. So having like, even if you have like an early morning class and a late class, if you somehow like can move around your schedule to have like at least like a solid chunk of time to just like get stuff done instead of like a bunch of random spaces, that's definitely really helpful.
Just to add to that, I think it's also kind of important to like just set up like, a small period of time, which is like your own time where you don't do anything specifically. So like I have noticed in usually computer science courses, they are usually due either like Thursday night or Friday nights. So you kind of still have your weekend to, relax and do stuff. And the way I scheduled my first year was like, I decided Saturday, I do absolutely nothing. It's my time, whatever I do, nothing related to academics, nothing related to clubs and everything. But then Sunday, I need to get back to track to kind of like cover up for like that one free day. So I would definitely suggest that, if you want like this one free day thing, or kind of like, 2 or 3 hours every day or something like that, where, it's like your time where you're doing whatever you like and, nothing related to college at all. I think that could like help you, kind of like de-stress and like motivate you to do the things better and like do the things quicker, I feel.
Excellent. Thank you, panelists. I have a question about just like the experience of the honors college. Do any of you have experience with the honors college? I can share the link to more information for those interested in the chat, but just wanted to open up in case anyone had something to say around honors college.
Yeah, I'm in the honors college. If anyone wants to drop questions that are more specific, like I can totally answer. But basically, there wasn't, for freshman year, it wasn't too, overall, it isn't too different. Like I take classes with like the rest, like everyone else. There aren't really that many honor specific sections. There was one honor section for discrete and first year writing and a couple math courses, which are the only ones that I was in, but the rest was pretty much with everyone else. It wasn't like separated or anything. It's all very integrated. Yeah, I honestly like for my honors discrete section, I went more to the regular discrete section because I learned more there. But honestly, like everything, it was all like fine. I like being in the honors program. I like living in the building. The building was very nice. But again, like back to classes, if you want to try it out, like you can switch. I believe you can switch back to the regular section if you want. I was gonna say something else. Oh yeah, you don't. You, I'm not sure if this is like if I can say this, but you don't have to go to the section that you signed up for. So like again, I was in the honor section of discrete, but I didn't really like being in that section. I didn't learn the best, so I just went to my friends' other professor sections, and I learned so much better. Or even if I couldn't make that section that day, I'd like grab their notes or something. I think one of the professors recorded their lectures, so I'd watch those. So that was really helpful for that.
Just to add to that, if you do intend on going to other sections, always remember what's happening in your own section, because like sometimes the sections are not like, giving you the same homework or the same type of assignment. So it's definitely important to kind of know that if you try out like hopping into like different sections. But yeah, I think in computer science, no one takes attendance, or at least they haven't for any of my courses. So you can freely like go to any specific class and like whichever you want, and just hop in there.
Also, it might be a little different with this like post-COVID year, because again, this was like pre-COVID, so we didn't have to. I guess during when we went hybrid, there were like an allotted number of seats of like students who could come in. So I'm really not sure how like the following semesters are going to be. So that may not be as free of an option, but just something to keep in mind.
Um, Seconding what everybody has said already, but also I have personal experience with going to the same class twice. So for two sections, the way that I structured it was I was having a hard time both taking notes and paying attention because I was trying to take like thorough notes. And I liked the professor and I thought the class was super interesting. This is math of data models again. So a bit of a wild ride that course was, but I liked the professor and I thought it was really interesting. So I went to both of his sections on Tuesdays and Fridays and essentially wrote notes during the first one and paid attention during the second one. And that would also allow me to like kind of zone out or turn around and talk to a friend during either class and hopefully not miss anything, which was a weird experience. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. Most of my friends were like, you are absolutely crazy. Why are you going to 200 minutes worth of this class in one day? But I had a good time. I would not take back that time. I would have just wasted the time otherwise. So it was worth it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So I think we might have one more or time for one more main topic, and then hopefully have some time to open it up for any other questions. And so the next topic will be getting involved. So what are your tips and advice and just general what you wish you knew your first year around getting involved?
I can start fairly quickly. So I met two of my best friends at one of the first club meetings that I went to. So I would recommend going to club meetings for that reason and for learning more about yourself and your interests and stuff. I went to like the in-person club fair. I don't know if you guys will have that, but you'll have probably the virtual equivalent during Welcome Week. But maybe it will be in person. I don't know. But there was a guy standing holding a piece of paper that said in pencil writing data club on it. And most people have like trifold boards and they're standing in front of it. And it was just this one guy by himself with data club. And I was like, what is this guy doing? So I asked him about data club, got on their mailing list, joined it. It was awesome. One of the best clubs that I've joined and kind of encouraged me into being interested in data science. And I'm doing a data science co-op and it's like my main interest inside of CS because I knew from before I started that I didn't really like programming and I still don't really like programming. And it was awesome to like kind of get connected to that experience. So sort of sign up for everything, take every opportunity that you can and see how things go, at least for your first semester. If you sign up for something, you're not like required to go. I know at the club fair, a bunch of like singing groups were yelling at people, trying to get them to sign up and like pressuring you into it. Just sign up for things you can get off the mailing list, but I would sign up for as many things as you're remotely interested in and you will have a good time.
Just to add to that, so I know they're doing like in-person Fall Fest at least on like the 6th, and then there's a virtual one on the 7th. So you get like a mix of both, I guess. In addition to that, I do recommend like trying out different clubs all the time. So like if you're interested in any specific thing, search up what clubs are available at Northeastern that you would be interested in, and like feel free to like explore a couple of them each semester. And worst case, if you don't like it, some clubs do offer like free food, so I guess that's like a free dinner for you as well. So, but I definitely feel that if you're like interested in some specific field or some specific activity, clubs are like a really good opportunity to kind of explore that and see like if you're really good at it or if you really like doing that specific field. So I definitely suggest like obviously exploring the ones which you like, but like something that is also like very unique to you. I think definitely worth kind of going into it and seeing how it goes. And in addition to that, I like they don't force you to like, stay in the club. Like if you don't like the club, you can obviously leave. So it's always about like 1 or 2 meetings at the very least. So yeah, I definitely suggest going into like a lot of clubs and exploring them a lot.
It's like tangential to that, but the biggest thing I can say is whether it's clubs or meeting people, just like be open. We're gonna meet so many people that you may have not necessarily been around in high school or like in the past. Northeastern's a giant school. You're gonna meet so many different kinds of people, clubs, classes, majors. Just like even if the people aren't what we're used to or like ones we were friends with in high school, just be open. You're gonna meet, I mean, I've said this like 4 times already, but just new experiences. It's gonna be so fun. And even if it doesn't seem fun at first, if it's like overwhelming, everyone else is going through the same thing. The first like welcome week or stuff might seem like very surface level, but everyone else is also feeling the same thing because no one knows each other. So just good luck. It's going to be great. Even if it doesn't seem great, it's going to be great.
And I also want to know a lot of our panelists, or all our panelists, are involved in activities and clubs that are not necessarily directly related to computer science or data sciences. Like, for example, Brendan mentioned that he's part of the Cheese Club. And so really, like, I think if any of the panelists want to speak about this as well in terms of the value of, all these other interests outside of computer science, exploring those, maybe this is a great opportunity to share some of those experiences.
I can talk briefly about like Choose Club, et cetera, sort of things. One other interesting club that I joined is called, I think it's called NU Audio or something. It's mostly it's kind of like a bunch of College of Engineering kids that are also in the arts. And they do all sorts of audio related things. They have cool guest speakers. Like there was an employee of Sonos that, like, I think she worked as a tech person on like traveling for bands for a while, and then sort of transitioned into like a speaker testing role at Sonos, and she was cool. And then they also do things like build speakers and build guitar pedals and other stuff. So that was pretty cool because I'm interested in music stuff. And Cheese Club was cool. A few of my friends dragged me into it. I was thinking it was going to be stupid. It's actually awesome. They had a lecture from a chemistry professor about how cheese is made. French Club guest lectured and like gave us a bunch of French cheese and told us about it. There was an anthropology professor from MIT that lectured about a book that she wrote on cheese and a bunch of other cool things. So something that you will kind of grow to notice, or at least I noticed with clubs, is that you are at Northeastern, and Northeastern kids have a certain vibe of like kind of going above and beyond with everything. So the club leadership for whatever club you're looking at is going to end up making it awesome, whatever it is. So I would recommend joining pretty much anything. If you are remotely interested, try it. My roommate auditioned accidentally for an all-girls dance team, and that was a fine experience as well. So like sometimes you join the wrong club and things still work out. Julie, I don't know if that answers your question or kind of discusses the point, but
It does. That's perfect. Yes, thank you.
I can add to that. Like I think another cool one is like the Mosaic set of clubs, because like those are like really big at Northeastern in terms of like entrepreneurship. So for those who don't know Mosaic, I think it's like a group of like 12 odd clubs that kind of focus in the area of like entrepreneurship, investment, and those kind of areas. So like it's more like business sort of clubs, but there are clubs that have like a mix of graphic design. So I like Scout is one of them, which has like I believe they work with real life clients either from Northeastern or from outside Northeastern, and they involve a lot of like coding, graphic design, and those kind of roles as well. So I would definitely suggest kind of trying that out, because it can be like a really good experience, especially if you like really want to start your own company at some other point, like after graduating from college, because that would be like really helpful. And in addition to that, I know some of the clubs inside Northeastern you can use as an alumni as well. So I believe IDEA is the one where you can work as an alumni. IP Collab is another one where they kind of help you with like legal stuff once you kind of decide to open your own company post college. So I would definitely suggest that maybe try out one or two clubs from the Mosaic set of groups.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So we're just about out of time. So I'm just going to open up for any last minute questions that you all might have. We might only have time for one or two, but this is kind of your last opportunity to do so. But don't worry, there are more opportunities to make sure your questions are answered after tonight, and I'll share a bit more about that after towards the end. Let's see. There's a question. So is there an in-person club fair so we can see all the clubs and more when we get on campus? Would someone like to share a bit more about that, or Fall Fest and kind of like that welcome week experience?
Yeah, so I did put it in the chat because my club is kind of preparing for that. So 6th of September, I believe from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I don't know the time specifically, but 6th of September, we have an in-person club fair where essentially, you'd see basically all of the organizations lined up all across Northeastern with their own table, and they're kind of demonstrating what they are, and like they kind of tell you more about the club. So I feel like if you really want to get to know good amount of clubs, that's like a good day to kind of just roam around and get to know different clubs. In addition to that, if you can't do on that day, 7th September, I believe there are 2 or 3 sessions virtually that you can also attend. But I would definitely recommend the in-person one. So like, try to make that one for sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Harsh. And I'm just going to open up to our panelists. Any last minute words, advice, pieces of wisdom to share with the group that you might not have gotten a chance to share yet, or parting words?
For any wisdom that we forgot to impart, there is a compilation of wisdom that is called the First Year Guide, and I might, if Julie is willing to send it out to you guys in like the end email after this thing, that would be awesome. But if you are interested in it, essentially Multi and a bunch of other clubs compiled together this resource that's like a huge compilation of all this information that's useful to incoming first year students, from like explanations of what classes are to how to make decisions to what to do if you're really worried about things and all that sort of stuff. So it's a pretty good resource and I highly recommend it. I was a big contributor on it and it's pretty cool. I will send the more final version to Julie if she's able to send it out, but also reach out to me if you're interested in that. And I can also send it to you directly.
Do that.
I guess something from my end is, if any of you like have any further questions, like feel free to like email us. We'd be like happy to help. And it can be like related to anything we talked about or anything we didn't talk about. So I like, from my perspective at least, I'm available on the weekends to kind of have like one-on-one chats with you and kind of help you out with whatever stuff you want to ask. And I'm sure like the other 2 panelists would also feel free to kind of help you with that. So like, don't be scared. Feel free to like email us and like ask any specific questions. Yeah.
We're here because we enjoy answering questions and helping you guys. So the same goes for our emails. It's completely voluntary. We're happy to do it. Please ask us. We wish that people said the same thing when we were coming in, because there are a lot of things that get your questions answered pretty much. It's easier than making mistakes and that sort of thing. Less to worry about.
All right, well, we're just about out of time. So first of all, can everyone please give your warmest virtual round of applause to our fantastic panelists for joining us tonight. Like they said, they are doing this just because they care so deeply about creating like a positive and warm experience for you all, and they are open and available to answer any questions that you might have afterwards. So I did post their emails with their permission into the chat, so feel free to connect with them. I also put my email as well, so feel free to connect with me after as well if you have any questions about anything else that we talked about. There's also a link to a post-event feedback survey. We would love it if you completed the survey. You do have the option to submit your feedback anonymously, so feel free to be as open and honest as possible. However, if you would like to enter to win one of 5 Khoury raffle prizes at the end of the summer for completing these surveys, there'll be a spot for you at the very end to put your name and your email address, and that's only for the purpose so that we can contact you if you win, but your name and your responses will not be connected to each other in any capacity, so don't worry about that. But we would love for you to fill out the survey. It takes about a minute or 2. The next thing is that I know that we didn't get to cover everything tonight, but we have a series of more events throughout the summer for you to get a chance to continue to connect with incoming students and current students and hear more about just the overall Khoury and Northeastern experience. Tomorrow night, we have a session led by Cosmo, which is our computer science mentoring organization, where they will lead some activities for you to get to know each other, talk a bit more about some terminologies that you hear a lot but might not know about, provide some more tips and advice about what they also wish they knew their first year and about some of these topics that we discussed tonight. So another opportunity to connect with incoming students. And then the event after that will be all around co-op and around making the most of your Northeastern experience. I know we didn't have a chance to talk about that tonight, but there will be further opportunities to do so. So feel free to check those out and register at the link. So that takes us to the end of our session. Thank you again so much to everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And again, we hope to see you at a future event, and feel free to connect with us after tonight, but we hope you all enjoy the rest of the day. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining.